Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be going over an exercise or kata that I've made, which I feel can help you or your team improve at testing your database layer when you're using relational databases. So I'll start out going over how to run the application. I'll kind of give an overview of it, do an example exercise or the first problem, and explain why I think it's useful. So it's made to run in cyber-dojo. Cyber-dojo is an awesome tool that basically lets you mob with your team and has a bunch of languages and frameworks already built in to make it super easy. So even though you'll be in a team, or if you're on your own, you're going to click I'm on my own, create a new single exercise, skip, and you can see they have a bunch of options here. We're going to click on Java, JUnit SQLite. Okay. So to run it, you're going to delete the example files, and just copy in all the files I have. Remember to keep the name the same because we're using Java. And so the reason that I said to click I'm on my own even if you're on a group is because it's so easy to share around and mob in cyber-dojo if you just copy and paste the link with each other. So it saves each time you test. So if I test here, you'll see it'll fail, but you'll see that yellow dot. And now if I refresh, I'll have that yellow dot, and any code changes I would have along too. So I can move in the rest of the code from my repo, but I already have it set up here. So let's go over the exercise. So it's pretty simple. Basically, you have an application to track sales from users, and you're implementing the database layer. The first problem, for example, is to get the name of the car with a given ID. I then have the rest of the CRUD operations and some queries that you'll have to implement. So if we look at the schema for this, a relatively easy schema to understand. We have 4 tables: countries, people, cars, and sales. The sales table references people and cars, while the people table references countries. And we have insert. We'll see when we get into the code that this is the records that will be tested, or that'll be there in kind of the database snapshot for every single test. And it's a consistent set of records. So if we look at the tests, before each of these tests, we're going to set up the database with all of the records in here. And after each of the tests, we're going to tear down the database and empty it out. This way, none of the tests interact with each other. They all test a kind of separate version of the database, or it's the same version, but they don't interact with each other. And this is important because you know your tests aren't going to break each other. You know that you can run your tests randomly. So I definitely recommend calling out to your group. That's why this is being done, and that they should implement their tests for relational databases just like that. So if we look at the setup functions, I can just explain it real quick. It's going to run the setup.sql and run the insert.sql. I added a script runner just because I feel it's easier to read this than a bunch of text in a string. It's easier to just read it in the file. I have a teardown function which deletes all the data. As I said before, it's resetting the database. And then I have some example functions just to show the Java syntax. I don't really feel the language or flavor of SQL is super important. These concepts are ubiquitous across both, I'd say. So if we look at this function, for example, get person name, pretty simple. It's just getting the name from the people table. So let's do an example problem. We'll do the first one, which is real simple. Get the name of the car with the given ID. I highly recommend test-driven development. In my opinion, it's the fastest way to develop, especially for situations like these. So I know it's pretty similar to this function, where we're trying to get the name of the car with a given ID. So let's copy and paste it In test-driven development, you write the test first. And I'm going to change it to, let's make the name let's say test get car name by ID. And what do we want our car to be named? We'll go with Dodge Challenger. And I'm going to, first I'll make a name for this function. Get car name by ID. But I'm going to leave the number here as 1 because I think it's important that your tests fail before they pass so you can know that it's actually running as you expect it to. So again, I'm going to swipe this function because I know I'm going to be doing something pretty similar. That's the thing about JDBC, it's so verbose. But name of my function, I think it was get car name by ID. And so I'm going to select the full name, or right now it's selecting the full name from people, where ID equals question mark. If I look at my schema, I'm looking for the car name from cars, where ID will equal question mark. So pretty similar actually. Let's just make those changes. Car name from cars, where ID equals question mark. So I don't have to change my where clause. I will have to change that. So let's run this test. It should fail, but for the right reason. Yep, so expected Dodge Challenger, but it was Jeep Cherokee. So now let's correct that, and it'll pass. So yeah, that's an overview of the activity. I think this is really useful. When I started doing this, I noticed my productivity shot up a lot. This method of testing, that is. You know, it really helps to get the immediate feedback, especially when you have more complex queries, to know that you made a simple syntax mistake, and you get that feedback immediately. In addition, if you ever need to refactor your queries, you have trust that your queries are doing a certain thing. So if you need to refactor them to make them faster, for instance, but you want the functionality to be the same, you can be a lot more confident in making that change. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this exercise, and let me know if you try it out yourself, or if you have any feedback. Leave a comment or feel free to email me. I have my email right here. And of course, I'll leave the Git repo in the description. Thanks for watching. See ya.